Welcome to Prince Short and House, exercise number 101 and 102, 140 words a minute, special for parliamentary reporters. Ready? Start. Mr. Deputy Chairman, sir, I rise to speak on the Security Laws Amendment Bill 2014 as passed by the Lok Sabha. This bill presented by the Honorable Finance Minister seeks to amend the Securities and Exchange Board of India Act 1992, the Securities Contracts Regulation Act 1956 and the Depositories Act 1996. I welcome this bill and support it wholeheartedly. Actually, the UPA government had proposed 3 ordinances. They brought them and they were very much eager to give more power, more strength and more teeth to SEBI so that they could control and take action against the people who were adopting fraudulent measures and trying to cheat the public. Here the most important thing is the capital market is very interlinked with the Indian economy. If the capital market is strong, sound and healthy, naturally the economic growth will also be very strong. But unfortunately, so many people become victims of the Sardhar deposit scheme. So many innocent people, middle class people, old people who had saved money for future were cheated by the Sardhar deposit scheme. Due to this scam, it was realized that we have to have very stringent and strict rules to control all these things. In fact, as all of us know, many people committed suicide. They had suffered so much that they came to the street. Such things always have a chain reaction. Because of such a scam, people are afraid to invest in the capital market. If you don't invest, you can't think of economic growth and industrial growth. Therefore, it is very much important. Due to this reason, the UPA government felt it and brought 3 ordinances, but they could not replace them with the bill due to certain other circumstances. So I welcome this bill. If the country has to progress, we must attract capital. This bill is going to attract the common man because they will feel that their money is safe. SEBI is not going to keep quiet if anybody follows fraudulent measures. That is a very welcome measure. Sir, you will be surprised to know that previously out of 11 regional exchanges, 700 listed companies disappeared because of fraud committed by so many people. It created a panic in the country. As a result, the economic growth also has gone down phenomenally because money was not coming. In fact, if one scam takes place at least for 3 years, people get completely stuck. They do not like to invest. Unfortunately, in the country, 3-4 scams have settled and harmed to the greatest extent our economic growth and our capital market. Now SEBI is being given full powers. As the Honorable Minister said, they can draw any information, they can write and take action. They need not go to the ministers. They have got full power. SEBI is supposed to be a watchdog. Now SEBI will become much more strong and will have dynamic powers. Welcome it. Here a safeguard has been provided that the board would decide whether calling or information and records from any person, including any bank or any authority or any corporation, shall be relevant to any investigation to inquiry by the board in respect of any transaction in securities. I welcome this. We also welcome that the SEBI board would be more stringent to control the people who take undue advantage of capital market and cheat the investors' money. But sometimes, due to lack of communication, SEBI should not punish the innocent people. Here I would like to caution the Honorable Finance Minister to take care that sometimes where you give abnormal powers to an institution, there is a possibility of the particular official or particular authority who may be temperamentally too much emotional, punishing the innocent people. It will lead to complications. It is very unfair to punish the innocent people. Therefore, I would like to point out one thing. In spite of giving them full powers, how are you going to ensure that they will not in over an anxiety, over emotion and over excitement take action against the innocent people due to lack of communication or due to any misunderstanding? This is my pointed question and a very important one. As regards the power of the board to enhance the quantum of penalty as awarded by the adjudicating officer. The board may call for and examine the record of any proceedings under this section, and if it considers that the order passed by the adjudicating officer is erroneous to the extent it is not in the interest of the securities market, it may, after making a causing to be made such inquiry as it deems necessary, pass an order enhancing the quantum of penalty if the circumstances of the case of justify. So the principle of natural justice has been followed by giving an opportunity to the party concerned. The board will decide in case the quantum of penalty imposed by the adjudicating officer is erroneous and not in the interest of the securities market. At the same time, it has also put a time limit of 3 months within which such an action this can be initiated if required against the erring party. Next para. Madam Speaker, I am extremely grateful to a large number of members to this House who have all actively participated in this debate which was initiated by Shri Huda. Almost all the members who have spoken have supported the bill. Some appeared to have supported it wholeheartedly and some others very grudgingly. I do not think Dr. Sasi's heart is into this bill. Therefore, he started by saying that this bill has 4 fatal flaws and it will not achieve anything, and ended up by saying that it can become very draconian. It can either of the two, it cannot not be both. But then he made a point that the real issue lies in getting information internationally and attacking the sources of black money. I think our homegrown friend from Rohtak, his experience was much more than our experience from Manhattan, because he knew the history of evolution and he completely and the clue on what history is. There was one a time, Sri Huda rightly mentioned it, when money crossed over geographical borders, the territorial jurisdiction of your laws and your investigation agencies almost came to an end. Therefore, to get evidence internationally which is outside the shores of India was extremely difficult. So, if a criminal crossed over into Bangladesh or Nepal or Pakistan, or if the evidence of this crime was hidden in a Swiss bank in Geneva or in any other tax havens, it was almost next to impossible for the government of India to get details of that information. So the first stage is that we attempted to get this by relying on the principle of dual criminality. The principle of dual criminality was that if the offence was per se a taxation violation, the cooperating state would not give information. It had to be a criminal offence, an offence under investigation. It should be an offence in both the territories. It should be an offence in India and in the other territory. This procedure continued. A lot of our struggles to get details from Switzerland used to be that we had to first prove that it was not merely tax evasion money, but these were proceeds of crime, and that crime itself was a crime both in India and internationally in that country. Thereafter, we enter the second stage, that how can people who hide money in one country and keep it in another are dealt with. The civilized jurisprudence requires that the countries cooperate with each other. Therefore, information was being sent on the basis of various cooperation treaties like the Double Tax Avoidance Treaty Clause 28 that you spoke of. That is the stage we are now in. But this stage is also not enough because we have information. For instance, take the HSBC accounts. The information about the HSBC account in Geneva is stolen by somebody. It was taken to France. That stolen information is made available to various countries by the French government. So we have a list of hundreds of names from India, people who have account in the HSBC bank in Geneva. Sir, the Swiss authorities have told us that they would not cooperate on the basis of stolen information. So the Revenue Secretary led a team of officials and entered into an arrangement. They asked the Swiss What if we are able to get independent evidence, independent of the stolen information against the same people, and the Swiss said that they would cooperate. So there is written arrangement, joint release was issued. They are now cooperating in a number of cases. Some of them are very significant cases, and we have got cooperation. When I went to attend the World Economic Forum, I met the Swiss ministers concerned, and we furthered that cooperation. But this is still a very slow process. Now the world is moving towards what is the core of the whole issue. G20 has taken an initiative where the Honorable Prime Minister made a commitment, and we are active participants that we will join the global effort for automatic exchange of information. The G20 initiative will lead to a situation where by about 2017, whoever are Indian citizens who transact internationally, their details are automatically conveyed, and if we find that any of those details are lawful, we are entitled to take action. Simultaneously, under the domestic law of the United States, the United States is requesting other states to enter into a treaty obligation, and there will be a bilateral automatic exchange. Now reports have come with regard to various committees that we have appointed, but I cannot give you an authentic data on the floor of the house or as to how much money is there. Therefore, it is different from what Integrity International says or some of the agencies say. These are all indicative figures. I cannot be too specific to give you the figures which you want to know. We are considering the reports which have come out in the recent past. Stop.